Good morning, everybody. Indeed, I'm Anna. I'm working for Ecorys as part of Tools4CAP team. This morning, I would like to give you a brief presentation of on the reflection and the tools that were discussed during the second round of the focus group of Tools4CAP related to the design and the implementation of the next NRPP, the National and Regional Partnership Plans. Before we go into details on the main outcomes, as Raquel said, I'm going to give a very brief presentation of what is Tools4CAP for the ones who do not know yet. Indeed, Tools4CAP, it's an Horizon project started in January 2023 till December 2026. So this is our last year. It's coordinated by Ecorys, and it gathers a consortium of 20 partners across Europe. The main scope and aim of Tools4CAP is indeed to support the design and the monitoring of the CAP strategic plan, but also to put the basics and the foundation for the preparation of the future CAP 2027. So indeed, there are different objectives. The first one is to provide a shared knowledge based on the evaluation of methods and tools used, of course, for the design and implementation of the CAP, but also to identify and adapt innovative methods and tools. We aim to establish a replication lab, which is already in place, to support some practical demonstrations and uptake of innovative solution. And also the idea would have been to set up a capacity building hub to transfer knowledge and share knowledge. And finally, of course, we aim to empower end users to adapt innovative solutions. In this slide, we present very briefly what are the main key outcomes of the projects. We will see that some of them will be mentioned across the different presentation. But indeed, we started with proposing the understanding of the new delivery model. Across the years, we also developed several methodological guidelines that relates to different methods and tools that can support member states in the monitoring and in the implementation of the CAP strategic plan. Another key outcome is an inventory of tools that is available on our website. So perhaps my colleague will be able to share the link as well. We are currently developing a handbook of best practice that will gonna be a final outcome of this project that will be released by the end of the year. And then, as I mentioned as well, we set up a replication lab to propose different use of different solutions, including the development of 10 case studies, which is also available already on our website. And finally, the capacity building hub. This was indeed a very brief presentation of what is Tools4CAP and what we did so far. But indeed, the focus of this introductory presentation is to present you a bit what were the main outcomes of the second round of the focus group. So for you to give you a bit of context, this exercise started with the proposal and the release of the multi-financial framework in July 2025. So based on this, our team proposed and prepared some protocols to be used for the national focus groups. And these protocols were used by the coordinators and were employed during the 16 national focus group that took place between March and April 2026. And then following the analysis of these results, we also conducted an EU-level focus group that took place in May. And let's say that the main results and reflections of these engagement activities will gonna be integrated in the handbook of best practices. For you to give you a hint on what was presented at the EU level focus group, we thought it was interesting to present indeed key insights showed by the perspective of DG Agri, so from the EU perspective, on the new policy framework. And indeed, the focus is on building a new performance-based policy framework with a strategic planning approach. There will be a high particular priority to income support for farmers. And according to other major programs and directives of the European Commission, the aim is to simplify. We will see as well how this is interpreted for member states. It aims to bring up synergies, so following an integrated approach that address different challenges of the rural areas, and it still gives priority to the social sustainability aspect and to the resilience, and so there will going to be a dedicated Unity Safety Net program. This was indeed the perspective of the European Commission, particularly DG Agri. In the next slide, in this slide, we want to give you a presentation of specific points that were particularly highlighted by us as study team, Ecorys, in particular on what are the main challenges, the main changes with the new MMF and NRPPs. And in particularly, there will not going to be a prescriptive process. So member states will going to be more, let's say, autonomous in drafting their NRPPs, following the recommendations prepared by the Commission, and this recommendation will be ad hoc per member states. And in particular, in the NRPPs, there are specific tools and methods that are suggested, such as needs diagnosis, intervention logic, etc. As we said, the CAP will gonna be integrated in the multi-fund, which is a single document that will gather also a specific section dedicated to agriculture, but let's be clear on this, it will not gonna be compulsory. So there might be cases where member state might not have a specific section related to the agriculture policy, and we can also see that this might also become a risk. Of course, with the new system, the new system will require more integrated coordination among the different ministries and also at different levels. With regards the approach, as we said, the new delivery model will gonna be even more focused on the result-based approach, and so that will gonna be structured into 33 intervention fields dedicated to agriculture, and each measure is related to one or more intervention fields, and each field is related to output indicators. And then finally, we can see that with the new model, the partnership process will be enhanced. And so it will gonna require more representation among different public authorities and other stakeholders. As we said, this is a first introduction of what will gonna be the main changes, sorry, with the new NRPPs. Now let's focus on indeed the process and the results of the focus group. During the spring, indeed, 16 national focus group took place in these countries highlighted in the map, and you can see as well the different colors represents different topics areas that were selected per member state. Anyhow, there were some key questions and areas that were addressed among all of them. Let's now deep dive a little bit more into the results, indeed, of the national focus group. What we can see is indeed that they first highlighted what were the main structural challenges in this new, with the new policy framework. And among them, the main important one are related to, for instance, governance and coordination. In that sense, it means that member states fear that there is still a lot of unclarity on the allocation of roles and among ministries, but also at different governance levels. In specific member states, for instance, Germany, France, Italy, there is a long ongoing debate whether they will going to follow a centralized or decentralized regionalized approach. And the difficulties indeed to overcome the often used administrative silos approach that unfortunately characterize certain member states. Another structural issue relates to institutional and political constraints, meaning that, as I previously mentioned, there will gonna be a higher competition among ministries that might influence the different policy design. And there will also going to be a high risk of competition for the non-ring-fence fundings across the different sectoral areas. And the risk as well is also that as indeed there will not going to be dedicated chapter compulsory for all member states to be drafted, the agricultural sector might be marginalized. Another structural challenge is indeed related to the prioritization processes, meaning that unfortunately there is weak processes in place due to the limited use of methodologies assessing the trade-offs. And also this weakness is related to the difficulty of aligning the EU objectives with the different national needs. And finally, another main aspects that arose from the discussions was related to operational and systematic bottlenecks, in the sense that there is still like a common limited administrative analytical capacity among member states. With regard to data systems, they are often fragmented and there is a lack of interoperability. And again, there is a unclarity related to the governance, the priorities that will going to emerge, and the monitoring phase. Of course, on one side, member states and national focus group were able to see at the structural challenges, but were able to see as well what were the main opportunities and the added value that the new delivery model will gonna bring. And so what we can see is that indeed, ideally, it will gonna aim at a more integrated policy design with a stronger alignment among different priorities, among, for instance, agriculture, environment, and climate change. As we said, this will gonna bring to a shift, like a deeper shift into a performance-based system with a greater focus on outcomes and impacts. It will also propose like a better coherence in terms of territory, with a better alignment among different regional needs. And there will going to be a more effective interventions due to the increased targeting support. And finally, there will going to be other two aspects that are still very relevant. One relates to the cost effectiveness that might be improved with better evidence-based resource allocation, and also a stronger stakeholder engagement with a more structured co-design approach. Once the challenges were defined and the opportunities were defined, then the main issue was to indeed underline what are the conditions that will enable member states to go ahead and indeed put in practice the new delivery model. So, of course, there was a high focus on the analytical and strategic tools that might be needed. In this case, there are many which are already in place and might be absolutely needed in the design of the new NRPPs, such as cost-benefit analysis, modeling, scenario tools, but also intervention logic and trade-offs analysis. As we said, a key priority will be given to better interoperability and normalization among different data systems. A stronger monitoring framework will be needed, as indeed the new framework will request a shift to an outcome impact approach. And finally, there will gonna be the priority to highlight stronger stakeholder mechanisms, not only indeed participation of different member states, but engage them and having like a more meaningful participation while consultation will take place. And also, Another enabling condition will be related to the administrative capacity. So there will gonna be the need for better capacity building, trainings, and coordination as well among different institutions. And in terms of governance, of course, there will gonna be the need to better align the different political commitments with different institutions. This is a bit what emerged from, very briefly, what emerged from the discussions, but let's a bit look at what it means in practice to translate an NRPP's ambition into practice. As I said, the different focus groups were developed around 4 key areas, but there were specific cross-cutting issues that emerged. And among them, we can see in particularly the dichotomy between integration and complexity, meaning that member states highlighted how the integrated planning processes might indeed slow down decision-making processes due to the higher coordination required. There is also another dichotomy related to the ambition of the NRPPs and the real capacity that member states has. In terms of tools, tools were often discussed, but there was often mentioned the idea that tools are efficient, and they support the decision making, but they do not unfortunately resolve some political trade-offs and political decisions that are finally taken. And then as well, another issue that emerged was related to timing, meaning that the effectiveness depends as well on when specific tools and methods are applied during the policy design stages. And then finally, as we said, there is still like this unclarity related to who will gonna be the owner of the process among the different ministries, as an NRPP will gonna be a single fund. Now let's go a little bit more on the different, let's say, results related to the 4 areas. I will not gonna repeat too much aspects that were already mentioned, but relating to the creation and the shared of an integrated vision, member states it's highlighted particular tools that could be needed or eventually potentially adapted for the new policy design. And in this case, there were mention of the foresight exercises, scenario analysis, intervention logic. In the discussion related to the balancing of the different level of priorities at EU, national, and regional level, the tools indeed useful and mentioned were, for instance, territorial analysis, scenario tools, and dashboards. But again, the message was clear: tools are useful and support the decision making, but will not gonna be the one that will determine the final outcome. And in relation to the balancing of priorities, another issue that emerged is the unclarity on the operationalization sides, but also on the subsidiarity. So who decides what and at which level? Of course, this will gonna be hopefully clarified in the following months. If we go to the next remaining 2 areas regarding designing cost-effective interventions, tools that were mentioned were the cost-effective cost-benefit analysis, modeling, and again here scenario analysis. While for measuring impacts of integrated priorities, here the main message was indeed the need for integrating the different data sets and data systems that are already in place. And finally, there will gonna be the need for a stronger alignment between the different steps of the policy design, meaning the monitoring, the evaluation processes. Indeed, this was a bit the main results that emerged from the national focus group. This was also enriched by the discussion that took place at the EU level. So what we did is that we structured the discussion a bit around the three main steps of the policy design. So the steps 1, need assessment and vision building, a second phase which relates to the intervention design, and the third one related to the budget allocation and prioritization. And for each of them, we kick off the discussion among stakeholders by presenting specific case studies. And indeed, in that case, we presented the Slovenian case study related to the Vision Building 2 for the Agriculture Policy 2024. For the intervention design, the Dutch colleagues presented the integrated food for the ecosystem design and monitoring. And finally, for the budget allocation, our IFLS German colleagues presented the German case study of the IOI matrix for the policy coherence. Very briefly again, the discussion indeed was interesting. Unfortunately, we didn't gather too much participation at the EU level, but it was still useful to debrief on what could be useful to put in place or eventually to adapt in these three main phases of the policy design. And so for the first one, for the needs assessment and vision building, stakeholders highlighted how integrated frameworks combined to data analysis will going to be relevant, specifically for this stage, and to prioritize stakeholder engagement methods and tools, and also scenario buildings. In particular, specific foresight and the Delphi-based authority approach were also mentioned. And also, it will gonna be useful to put in place structural indicators at farm level, and indeed, the structural indicator. It's also an issue that was raised in different discussions, and we're gonna see also in the other steps how this will be relevant. And then for the intervention design, as already mentioned, modeling tools will gonna be high practical, such as scenario simulation and distribution effects. Particularly from DG Agri emerged the still importance of using FADN and FSDN based analysis and intervention logic framework. And finally, for the budget allocation, we mentioned some specific tools, but we highlighted as well the importance of not applying one single tools, but applying a combined system of approaches that might indeed enhance the analysis. And in this case, as I said, first, the case studies from Germany was a clear example, the intervention objective impact matrix, but also data-driven tools that combines different administrative farm level data. I think this was brief. I was also concerned about time, so it was a brief summary of what was the discussion and the main outcomes. I don't know if there is space of any questions, otherwise I'm gonna give the floor to my colleagues.